Hello everybody, this is John F. here with Crafted Shutter, and today we've got Andre with us, and I'm excited to have you, Andre. It's good to have you on the show today.
Thank you so
And
much,
we're going to
John.
talk a little bit about your photo and video experience. So
Okay.
before I go any further, let's tell the people here on Crafted Shutter how you got started in photo and video.
Okay. Well, one of the things that got me started in photo video is that I just loved cameras. I just loved how they worked. I loved being able to capture images. Excuse me. Love being able to capture images and video. And over time, obviously, I was able to, my mom was able to get me an old home video camera a while back. I think we all had some experience with that. And just went in and I just started doing all kinds of different angles and so forth. And then after time, I came into DSLRs later and started doing photo and video and been at it ever since.
Now, where do you shoot? Where is your home base?
Home base is in Asheville, North Carolina, and I travel usually around the Western North Carolina area, some Greenville as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for the past year, you mentioned to me while we were talking off camera, what's one of the big projects you were working on last year?
Okay, yes. Got hired on as a Miro contractor at the beginning of last year and shot a lot of Airbnb Plus shoots. Also worked with Mint House and did some work also with Studio Now doing stock and then some of my own projects as well.
Excellent. Now, you have a favorite camera?
Well, I have my two cameras I shoot with. I shoot with the Mark III and I shoot with the 5D Mark IV. Like them both, but I always have my eye on something else. But that's what I shoot with currently.
Excellent. Now, your experience with shooting the bed and breakfast, the Airbnbs. I mean, your experience with it. What do you think that has taught you as far as industry goes and production goes? What did it teach you in doing work for other people?
Okay, one of the things that I think it taught me is I had never shot real estate before, actually. And so when they got started, they were looking for some photographers to get into. And they sent some training out. I learned how to do it and started to enjoy it. I like the simplicity of being in a house by myself, being able to get the images necessary. So one of the things that I think I learned from it was what they were looking for. It's the simplest way to put it. Exactly what angles. Never done real estate before, so then if you haven't done it before, I didn't realize the importance of having a gear head on my tripod until I started doing real estate photography. And then the angles, while they look right in camera, once you get them up on the screen, even the slightest deviation looks wrong, and it just wasn't what they were looking for, and some things would get rejected. So over time, I went through and I got better at it. That's one thing I learned. Another thing I learned is just like with anything else, that when you're working with a when you're working with stock, when you're working with a stock contributor, that there's times when it's hot and that things are going great and the projects are flowing, and then there's some times where it slows down. The other thing I learned is that you don't rely solely on one contributor to bring you stock to get your food on your table. You got to diversify and have different things in, but still excellent experience. Enjoyed it a lot, and still take the projects from time to time.
Excellent. Now, I'll be linking to Andre's links below, social links and images and stuff. You also have some really phenomenal images of nature, and it's not just the nature, but what does filming nature do for you as a creative?
Okay, well, one thing I have to say, especially with nature, is that I remember even before even before I saw some of your videos, I came up with the idea from my wife that I shot what was around me. And being up in Asheville, Blue Ridge Mountains are always up there. Parkway is easy to access. Sunrises, sunsets, animals, and so forth. It was around me. I have some images of some hawks that I recently shot, and they were right in my front yard, and they started to roost around there. So then that became what I shot. because I wanted to shoot something interesting and didn't know much about bird photography. I'm sure I forget what the name is called. But it was just fun to shoot what was around me. And then the other good thing about shooting what was around me is that you were able to practice a whole lot more on stuff that you see. You get the first sunrise one day in, then you go back about 4 days later. Well, guess what? The weather could be completely changed. The mountains have changed and so forth. That same sunrise you got doesn't look the same.
That's right.
So that's one thing that I enjoyed about shooting around me is you take what's available to you and use that and leverage that in the best way that you can.
I think that's fantastic. Another thing, one thing about Western North Carolina, they say if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. And
right.
I mean,
Changes.
and by the way, all of you out there, no matter where you live, there are more subtle changes to your environment than you think. So it is important to enjoy what you're doing. I find actually on mine, no one believes this because I don't produce that much of it. And actually, I don't even share that much of it. But when I'm stressed or feeling overwhelmed, I'll just grab my camera and go take a hike in the woods.
Absolutely.
And, some of the images I still love. I've printed them, put them on my walls just because it's a stress relief.
Absolutely.
And so that's one of the now I'm gonna turn the tables on this, and
Okay.
I am gonna ask you one question. How did you run across me, and how did you run across the Crafted Shutter YouTube channel?
absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, John, how I ran across you was through a good friend of mine named Jared Kay, and he always laughs because I always put him on a pedestal. But even then, I'm gonna say it. I still believe he's the best videographer in Asheville.
He's
I
good.
say that.
He's good.
He's a really good guy.
He's good.
But he's always been the kind of mentor to people. And when we met actually nearby at a Leela Patterson Center event, and I started to talk to him about my work, and just so nice. He knew so much, was able to teach so much. And so he mentioned a guy, he says, there's a guy named John Neff that you need to talk to. This was years ago. And I wasn't doing anything full time at the time. And so I was like, yeah, I need to talk to him. But truthfully, I was kind of worried. I was like, well, maybe my content's not good enough. This guy does things professionally. I was kind of worried. And I actually didn't hear much about it for a while. And then I started getting on LinkedIn more over this past year. And then I saw not only the work that you were doing, but also the way you were actually educating through the YouTube channel, which immediately I got excited about. And obviously, you see a professional that has excellent content, been in the industry for a long time, and is willing to help people get started. I'm like, you, in my opinion, you look around, I haven't found that many people that do that. So that's how we got back together, and I'm just, I was excited when he said, hey, come and be on the channel. I was excited about that.
Yes, and that goes for other artists out there as well. You know what? I am excited whether you live in Asheville or I can meet you on vacation, because promoting each other's work, we talked about this earlier. There's enough work out there for all of us to eat.
Absolutely.
Okay, there's enough work out there. So if you're dedicated to your craft, you're willing to work hard, you don't have to worry about competition, because people are going to start coming to you over time. Takes a little bit of patience, as with stock. So I'm going to turn it over to you. What's some questions you'd like to ask me to fry me on the channel here? So
Wow. And one of the things I said before when I first came in, I had so many questions for this man, because like I said, if you haven't seen, and by now I'm sure if you're watching the channel, if you haven't seen his stuff, if you haven't seen some of the images and some of the videos produced, a professional for a reason. But some of the things starting out, I'm working with a few agencies, and as I mentioned to John, on Shutterstock I have one image
Excellent.
that I'm actually getting paid for. I'm getting paid $0.25 a month for the one image that I have. But first question I would ask is, I saw your video when you were talking about shooting things that you love.
Yes.
So right now, if I were to start being a stock photographer today, how many images would you say I need to start thinking about adding to my portfolio for either Shutterstock or for any stock agency?
I know this is going to sound trite, but this is an actual fact, as many as you can. Now, I know that sounds, cliche, but it's actually true. Now, I'll give you some guidance here that we didn't talk about off camera. You love shooting nature. It's a part of you and capturing the surrounding area. So this is a tip for anybody in your field. If you go out and you find models and incorporate that into your nature, because it comes to you naturally, you enjoy doing it. So you can incorporate family, you can incorporate kids, you can incorporate feelings of nature. What I mean by that is, like on the Blue Ridge Mountains, we got some beautiful cliffs with some beautiful, and so you can do the victory poses. You can do the poses of prayer and supplication. You can just cover the gamut of human emotions in the beautiful surroundings that you live in. And then when you capture images that have emotion, one of my best-selling images, believe it or not, is a girl in prayer at Lake Junaluska, which is in the Asheville Mountains on a bridge. I shot it at sunrise. So the sun's coming up behind her. I've got her in a prayer pose, and I sell that image just about daily.
Wow.
So because it incorporates a strong theme. So a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what to shoot. Incorporate a theme in what you love. In other words, with nature, there's always that discovery aspect. So you can get a child or you can get a family and do the discovery series of, I discovered new plants and fish and all that. You can use your surrounding areas, and then when you infuse emotion with it, then you're going to have good stock. Excellent. And I think that works for video as well as photo. So what other questions you got?
Okay. Let's see here. So we established on how to change some of the images. Now, I know you mentioned this in another video, but let me go ahead and put it out there. Let's say that I'm starting with a cell phone, and that's what I have. Okay. What are some of the things I should be thinking about if I wanted to start doing stock with just a regular cell phone?
Okay.
We know cell phones do excellent stuff nowadays.
Excellent photos.
Videos. Yes.
Look at the strengths and weaknesses of your cell phone. A cell phone has a really good macro lens. Okay, so in other words, you can get close to an object and still stay in focus. And so cell phones do really good at close shots, and it keeps everything in focus. It doesn't do really good at shallow depth of field. It doesn't do really good for low light. You don't want to take your cell phone out at midnight in any town and shoot city scenes. It's just, you can do it, it's just not that good. You know, you're going to have to use a lot of noise reduction. You're going to have to soften up that image to make it viable for commercial. So if you take your cell phone, again, cell phones I like to think of on-the-moment type devices. And so as you look at stock portfolios through there, another area that I haven't explored a lot, but that is extremely viable, is editorial. And I think cell phones, that's one of its main strengths, is editorial. So in other words, you could decide one day that you're going to take a clip and a picture of every fast food restaurant that you run across. Okay?
Wow.
And its location. Try to get its surroundings, because all of them are in different locations. And so that just gives you an idea, oh yeah, I want to do that today. And I'll do that. I'll take an hour and I'll go out and shoot, something that comes into my head. But a cell phone is really good for that. So it's on the moment. That's really, really good. If you're going for the artsy, it doesn't work as well with a cell phone because everything's going to be in focus. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to think about what you're trying to portray. Okay. And so when you get that, you can take your cell phone out in nature and you're actually, if your background fits your subject, you don't really have to worry that much about blurred background. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So if you're in nature and you're filming a kid hiking, you don't have to worry about blurring out the background because it's part of the image.
Right.
And so that's just a few tips you can do with your cell phone.
Did I ask one more question?
You can ask one more question.
I can ask one more question.
I'll try to survive it.
Okay, all right. I know you've mentioned this probably on all your, on so many of your videos, rather, not all of them, so many of your videos. So now, when I come into, let's look at it from a global idea. When I come into stock photography or videography, should I have a long-term plan on what I want to accomplish? Or should I look at this as, well, in other words, should I know ahead of time exactly what my desired goal is to accomplish from stock? Or should I just approach it as, well, let's put some images on and see what happens?
Okay.
That kind of thing.
I'm going to give you a tip here. I'm actually going to make a video on this and more in depth, but this is actually very important what I'm going to share with you. If you don't set some kind of goal, you will never reach it. That's just a fact, okay? You just won't. In other words, if you treat it like a side, it will be a side. And the reason with stock why this is important is because the market is extremely competitive. It just is. It's just the nature of the beast. So in order to get any money out of it, you need to be focused. And you have to remember that being focused helps you in other aspects of your life. So if you're focused on stock creating good when you're doing that, then when you go do another job, the same passion's going to spill over. And it's a self-discipline too. Stock is a self-discipline. No one's holding your gun to your head to tell you I can go shoot good stock,
That's
right?
right.
And you're not even getting a paycheck for it. You know, I mean, well, you're getting a quarter. Sorry about that.
Maybe a quarter.
Yeah, maybe a quarter. But here's the thing that I want to talk to you about: visualization. A lot of people say, okay, I'm going to visualize me making $1,000 in stock, and I want you to visualize you hitting that goal. I'm all for visualization. That's the wrong approach. How you approach visualization for stock is you approach it by thinking about you doing the work, not the end goal. So you visualizing yourself with your models. You're visualizing what your models are doing. You're visualizing you taking the images. You're visualizing that process, and that keeps building you up over time. If you just think about sitting on a beach drinking tequilas, I'm non-alcoholic, so you can drink the virgin ones. If you sit on the beach and just thinking about having a good time, you're never going to do anything. But if you visualize yourself doing the process, then success will come as you do it. You make this goal smaller. A lot of people say, think big. Absolutely. Plan, aim big, but think through, make the visualization down to the more granular level of what you're going to do the next day or what you're going to do the next hour. And train your brain to just jump on that wagon and go along. I do that with every shoot.
Excellent.
And that's how I actually come up with more ideas. I sit down, I visualize a shoot. I hire models, and then I visualize the models. What am I going to do with the models? What am I going to do with them? How am I going to use them? And I am going to say next week I am going to do my first live director on YouTube where people can log in and tell me what to shoot. Believe it or not, I do have a backup list in case no one tells me what to shoot.
So you guys need to go on there. We need to go on there and tell them what to shoot.
I'm going to make some money either way.
Be on there, right?
I'll make money either way. But so that the visualization of doing it will actually give you success long term.
Okay.
Instead of just thinking, okay, this is my goal. I want you to think about what it is to get to that before you think of just your goal. Set a goal. Set a goal of money. Set a goal of I want to make $300 a month. That's my goal. And so what if you don't hit it, friends? It's a journey, okay? And you got to make the journey fun. And I don't hit every goal I've set, okay? I don't hit every goal I've set. I was supposed to be at 1 million subscribers on YouTube by now, and I'm only a few. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
got some work to do in 2020.
That's right. We set some big goals, but don't let that distract you from focusing on the daily things that you have to get done. Was that helpful?
That was incredibly helpful.
All right. Well, hey, listen, it's been fantastic. Again, the idea is for all of us to grow together. All of his links, don't forget, check him out down below.
Thank you.
Andre, and if you're in the Asheville area, hey, hit him up. You can find him from the links below. Call him up and do a coffee together and chat about photography.
I love it. Let's do it.
Hey, until then, everybody on Crafted Shutter, as I always end, we will see you in the next video.
Dude,
How was it?